Today we're checking out the strangely named GEEKOM IT13 MAX. Why strange? Well, because unlike the IT13, which features a 13th gen Intel CPU, this one features a 14th gen. So, yeah, branding. Anyway, GEEKOM has consistently kept the old Intel NUC design alive, and the IT13 MAX is no different. It has very familiar aesthetics to the last few units Intel produced, and is a very solidly built mini PC. No creaking plastic here. Oh no. There's a metal frame reinforcing the plastic shell, and the bottom plate is also made of metal. Inside the IT13 MAX is Intel's Core Ultra 9 185H, a flagship mobile chip from a few years back. It features a mishmash of different CPU cores and ARC graphics for the iGPU. DDR5 SODIMMs support tops out at DDR5 5600 megatransfers. LPDDR5X tops out at 7467. The reason I'm mentioning both is this one comes in two different flavors. There's a 1TB SSD 16GB SODIMM RAM version for $759 after the coupon, or 24GB of LPDDR5 non-upgradable RAM and a 500GB SSD for the same price, although it may be found cheaper on Amazon, as it is right now. While I think offering both options is good, especially in the current market, be aware that the LPDDR5 model does not max out the chip. It's the same 5600 MTS as the DDR5 SODIMM, so a missed opportunity and likely done to keep price parity. Incidentally, the 24GB LPDDR5 model is the one we're looking at today. And inside the packaging box is a compact 19V 120W power supply, VESA mount, screws, HDMI cable, and paper trail. The front of the Mini has 4 USB-A 10GB ports, which you don't see every day. The one on the far left is always on for charging. There's also a 3.5mm audio jack next to the power button. On the side is a full-sized SD card slot, while inside the IT13 MAX is a Wi-Fi 7 chip for wireless and Bluetooth. The back has a power input, USB 4 40GB supporting power and display. However, I wasn't able to power it with my 90W USB-C monitor, so yeah, it's been a while since that's happened. There's dual HDMI 2.0, dual 2.5GB LAN, USB-A 10GB, USB 2, and another USB 4 40GB supporting display out. Intel NUCs were easy to open from the very first launch unit, and this one's no different. Loosen the 4 screws, pull, and I become your uncle. The thermal pad on the 2280 Gen 4 NVMe drive connects to a metal piece, which connects to the bottom lid for passive cooling, although there's no thermal pad included for the 2242 slot, which GEEKOM says is M.2 SATA in the specs. However, I threw in a 2242 Gen 4 NVMe drive, and it worked at X2 speed. So here's a classic case of under-promising and over-delivering. Jokes aside, specs should be updated. GEEKOM includes Windows 11 Pro with the IT13 MAX, and it's scanned clean. Ubuntu was also tested, and everything worked fine. For the benchmarks, we have another GEEKOM mini PC with the same CPU to compare against in most charts. Also, the out-of-box performance was tested, as well as the performance mode in the BIOS. Let's get to it. First up, Cinebench single core. A slight improvement for the IT13 MAX over the GT1 Mega. Out of the box performance in Cinebench multi-core is a bit worse than the GT1 Mega. Geekbench CPU single core isn't far behind, and generally against today's competition isn't very impressive. Performance mode gave it a slight noticeable boost. In multi-core, the IT13 MAX is again behind the GT1 Mega, and the performance mode didn't help get a better score. H.264 CPU encoding is decent, but also behind its rival. You can also see the same in the longer AV1 encode test, although it's not behind by a lot. Adding the iGPU into the mix, and performance is pretty close to what it should be. The Geekbench AI CPU benchmark is up next, and the IT13 MAX is very unimpressive compared to the competition. Same for the AI tests on the iGPU. It does perform okay in 3D Mark V Strike, only a bit behind the Mega. While it looks to match the Radeon 780M, this is only for certain workloads. Mostly, these benchmarks don't translate to something like gaming. Anyway, here's Time Spy, again a little bit behind. And finally, Steel Nomad Lite. Overall, this IT13 Max trails the GT1 Mega in every metric, but not by a huge amount, a few percent here and there. The first debut of ARC integrated graphics was impressive in 3D Mark benchmarks, elsewhere not so much. It does okay with some esports titles.
Over there. I'm going.
AAA games though are mostly a no-go zone. Here we're looking at games natively rendered with no upscaling or frame generation. Emulators run pretty well up to the PS3 era. An option to push GPU performance further is to use an eGPU with a USB 4 port, and here you can see it works fine. For compiling code, the IT13 Max does pretty well, but lags behind the newer generations, as you'd expect. Adobe Photoshop performance is not impressive, with many AMD minis beating it. The Adobe Premiere score is good, but nothing amazing. Still, it's plenty of performance for most 4K video projects. GEEKOM has included an above average Kingston SSD drive for storage. It's pretty speedy for a 500GB. The bottom metal plate functions as a giant heatsink for the SSD, and it works great, with the SSD drive temp barely moving under load. Bluetooth range is excellent. The IT13 Max is one of the best minis tested. Wireless range is also good at 12 meters or 39 feet from the router using the 5G band. An idle power draw of 9 watts is typical for this type of mini PC, and the maximum hits over 100 watts in each performance mode. The maximum CPU temp is high, with thermal throttling kicking in at around 103°C. Unfortunately, fan noise under load is also high, with this being the loudest mini PC out of the box from this selection of units. Performance mode is a little noisier. At 0.88 liters in volume, GEEKOM's IT13 Max is one of the larger mini PCs around. The BIOS is accessed on startup with the delete key. Advanced power management configuration, there's options for wake on LAN and auto power on. In hardware health configurations, you'll find the performance profile control via the fan option. Unfortunately, no setting it manually. Being able to fine tune the power mode further would be nice. The GEEKOM IT13 Max has a plastic outer shell, but the build quality is really nice. Price to performance isn't amazing, however, the feature set is decent. As mentioned earlier in the review, I couldn't get USB-C PD to work with my 90-watt monitor. While the DDR5 SODIMM model does feature the max supported memory speed, This LPDDR5 unit doesn't and is no faster. CPU cooling is a weak point with high maximum temp and fan noise, but Bluetooth and wireless range is nice. GEEKOM sometimes provides BIOS updates, but I'm unsure if this will get one. I think more options for the BIOS, such as a TDP selector, would be ideal. Driver downloads show up on the website, and GEEKOM provides a longer 3-year warranty, which is a big draw card. There we have it. GEEKOM's IT13 MAX is an okay mini PC, which has room for improvements. The high CPU temp and fan noise lets it down, and Intel's flagship Meteor Lake chip isn't very impressive in 2026. But overall, it's okay. The build quality and 3-year warranty are the standouts. Thanks to GEEKOM for letting me check it out, and you might be interested in watching this video next. Cheers!